Just as there's cola and diet cola, there's also diet roguelikes. These games take the permadeath and procedural generation of dungeon crawling and apply them to different genres. There are platformers, strategy games, and first-person shooters. Just take your pick. The very best of them will keep you entertained and experimenting for days and weeks on end. Plus, they're better for your teeth. Prolong your runs with the Pro X TKL keyboard. Sure, you keep your rewards when you die, but there's nothing like the satisfaction of making it all the way to the end.
In the name of Hades, Olympus, I accept this message.
Spelunky was one of the first projects to transform the roguelike into something completely new. Creator Derek Yu took gaming fundamentals like navigating blocks and jumping on enemies and tossed them into randomly generated caves. To make it through, you're relying not just on your reflexes, but also the knowledge picked up on previous runs. Over time, you'll learn how to dodge a hopping spider, and that robbing the shopkeeper can lead to major consequences. Spelunky 2 came out a few years ago. It introduced hidden corridors and branching pathways you have to choose between, not to mention turkey riding, which remains a popular sport to this day. Another early classic is FTL Faster Than Light, which simulates the running of a spaceship drifting through a hostile galaxy. As captain, you're not just firing the cannons. You're putting out fires on board your craft as well. It's up to you to decide whether to reroute energy to the big guns, power up the engines for an escape, or lead a boarding party on a direct assault. The stakes are incredibly high, so it's just as well that FTL lets you pause whenever you like to consider your options. And bite your nails, obviously. The developer of FTL, Subset Games, has released just 2 projects in 12 years, but each one has revolutionized the roguelite as we know it, so nobody's complaining. Into the Breach came out in 2018, and immediately gripped the world with its combination of turn-based tactics and Godzilla-style kaiju fights. While your squad of mechs is more than capable of bringing down a giant bug or 3, you'll find yourself torn between conflicting priorities at every turn. Before long, you'll be choosing between the lives of hundreds of civilians in a skyscraper or that of your best and most beloved pilot. When that happens, pray to whatever god you can, even if it's Godzilla. For a comedy breather, why not try Void Bastards? From one of the brains behind Irrational Games, this FPS leans on the existing magic of Bioshock and System Shock. You'll be sneaking around dying space stations, ambushing mutants, and deploying kitty bots. But the whole thing is framed as a bureaucratic satire. Every time you die, you're issued with the proper paperwork ending your employment. Then a new protagonist is awoken from stasis, and the game begins again. Just watch out for the English tourists. Transformed into volatile blobs, they'll explode while yelling about their lost luggage. Which is pretty true to life, we have to say. Many of the most successful roguelites have been card games. There's something about building a deck in randomized circumstances. It pushes you towards creative solutions. Rather than settling into familiar patterns, you're trying new things no matter how often you play. Slay the Spire is quite simply the best example of the form. Every time you head up the tower, the layout changes, and new monsters seek to halt your progress. As with Into the Breach, you can see your enemy's next move before it happens, which often gives you just enough room to come up with a desperate, last-ditch strategy. It's the perfect mix of forward planning and seat-of-the-pants survival. Speaking of, Vampire Survivors more than deserves a place on this list. In this bullet hell roguelite, death is inevitable, but you'll take as many bats and demons with you as you can, emptying the screen of hundreds of bad guys in a single session. That kill count is helped by the fact that you don't even need to squeeze the trigger. You'll be firing automatically, so that you can keep your attention on strategy. Not convinced? Then you should know that there are even more Vampire Survivors fans than there are enemies. Hundreds of thousands of players can't be wrong. Once you're finally dead, you can move on to In Death Unchained. The highest rated archery game in VR is still being updated to take advantage of the latest headsets with better graphics and new game models. It also happens to be an excellent roguelite. The spooky medieval worlds of Unchained recall Dark Souls, stitching together cathedrals in impossible patchworks of floating architecture. Unlike your local church, these cursed ruins are filled with damned souls, angels, and enormous demons, just waiting to be turned into pincushions. so grab your bow and make it rain. While we're in Purgatory, we've got to pay respects to Daddy. In Hades, you hack and slash your way out of the underworld. You do so in defiance of the god of the dead, who is also your dad.
Stupid boy. I told you nobody gets out of here, whether alive or dead.
What Hades has over other roguelites is a gripping, character-driven story. It stars a dysfunctional Olympian family whose quirks and secrets are uncovered over multiple runs.
I'm home.
And thanks to the ability-enhancing boons of Zeus and Poseidon, the potential character builds are just as deep. Deep as hell itself.
Good to see you, lad. Despite the circumstances. Remember your training out there. The pain of death is but another obstacle.
You know, we're thinking of turning this video into a roguelite. Maybe next week we'll rearrange all the entries so you can watch it through again and get a different experience. Or maybe we'll just upload a completely new video instead. That's a better idea. If you want us to let you know when it goes live, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.
Lord Ares, please accept this offering for giving me such strength as necessary to succeed.